I'm Adam Azer with the UWIRE Campus Pulse, and today we discuss the UWIRE preseason college football poll, which has the Florida Gators at number 5. To learn more about the Gators, let's talk to Mike McCall, the sports editor for the independent Florida Alligator. Mike, the Gators didn't really have a featured tailback last season, so tell us about the status of the Florida backfield now.
Well, they've got 4 running backs competing for the starting job, including the transfer from Southern Cal, Emmanuel Moody. But, so far, through spring practice and everything, the coaches pretty much said Keyston Moore is going to be the starter, the same guy who started last season, had a lot of problems fumbling the ball. He's probably the least dynamic runner of the 4, but what he brings is, he blocks well, he fits into Urban Meyer's scheme, and those are a lot of things that he really looks for. Behind him, the depth chart's been listed as Chris Rainey next, who's a, real dynamic playmaker, really showed his stuff at the spring game, ran a 4.24 40 also before the game. I mean, the kid can really make some plays, but his size has been an issue. And then, behind him they list Emmanuel Moody, who's had some trouble learning the offense. Still probably the best every down back out of that group. And then Mon Williams, 4th, who was out last year with torn ACL and really hasn't developed the way that they've been hoping. But, right now, going into the season, it looks like Keyston Moore is going to be the starter, but we'll see how long that lasts because they're going to need some more production out of that position this year.
How much better is the defense going to be this year? Last year it allowed 25.5 points per game, but everyone's a year older now.
Yeah, you'd think they'd get a little bit better since they're a year older, but, we'll just have to wait and see. That secondary is still really suspect. They've got Major Wright playing free safety. He's really a strong safety, a guy that likes to hit people. So maybe when Will Hill gets in, the recruit, he'll get there in the fall or actually probably this summer, see if he can step in and take over at free safety, see if they can shift things around a little bit. As it stands right now, they're still a little bit shaky, but they're learning. They've definitely improved. You're probably going to have Wandy Pierre-Louis and Joe Hayden still at corner, same starters from last year. And, there was definite improvement from them as the season went on, and they even looked better in spring practice. So things are looking up for the secondary, and then at linebacker, Brandon Spikes is as good a middle linebacker as you'll find around the nation. And then, Dustin Doe, one of the outside linebackers, and the other one, A.J. Jones, still supposed to start, but we'll see. I think Lorenzo Edwards, he's going to be a redshirt freshman next year. We'll see if he can step in and make any kind of impact at outside linebacker. I think he's one of the guys that really has a chance to make a name for himself this upcoming season. And then when you look down the defensive line, they lost Derek Harvey, but they'll replace him with Carlos Dunlap, who will be a sophomore, and he's a guy that's really been, praised for his athletic abilities. He's 6'6", 290, moves really quick. He even returned 2 kickoffs for touchdown in high school. So it's a guy who's a real freak and can get to the quarterback. So if they can get that pass rush going, that'll make a big difference for the defense.
Not a bad out-of-conference schedule, which we don't always see from SEC schools. Miami, Florida State, Hawaii. Factor that in with the SEC schedule, and can this team stay in that national championship picture?
Yeah, I think they can, but with that said, you look at last year, there were probably 3 or 4 plays on defense you could trace it back to that made the difference between that team losing 4 games and 1 or even going undefeated. So we'll see how that works out this year. They're definitely going to have some tests. Got to go to Arkansas, then come home against LSU. They're going to have to play Georgia in that game in Jacksonville, which is going to be as competitive this year as it's ever been. And, Miami's going to come into the Swamp hungry on September 6th. They've had it down a couple of years, and nothing would get them back on their feet like beating Florida in the Swamp.
Okay, so recently we've read about Tim Tebow giving inmates pep talks, performing circumcisions in the Philippines. Is there anything Tim Tebow cannot do?
No, I'm really not even surprised by any of this stuff anymore. You hear about it, and it's like, all right, fine. There's not really a whole lot of things I've put in my mind that he can't do. So, but what he still hasn't done really is he hasn't won a national championship on his own. He's got to beat Georgia. He's got a lot of things he's still got left to do on the football field. So we'll see how that works out this year. He's also had some problems. It's hard to knock Tebow for everything he's done, but even going back to high school, he was never really a clutch performer. And when you have that last drive and the ball in your hands, you got to get it done. And that's one of those things that maybe the legacy he leaves at Florida could be tainted by if he doesn't pick it up this year. And they should have plenty of close games with as shaky as that defense looks.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, no problem.
Florida checks in at number 5 in our preseason poll. The November 1st matchup in Jacksonville with the Georgia Bulldogs certainly looms large, so circle that one on your calendars. That wraps up this edition of the UWIRE Campus Pulse.